In this section, we are going to talk about types of neurons. Neurons can be classified into three types: sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. Look at this diagram. You can see these three types of neurons. You can see that they have different appearance, but they all have cell body. This is cell body of sensory neuron, cell body of interneuron, and cell body of a motor neuron. And they also have nerve fibers. These are the basic structure. So what you need to notify is the cell body of the interneuron and the motor neuron are located usually at the CNS. Are located in the CNS. And the cell body of the sensory neuron is outside of the CNS. Now let's take a look of the detailed structure. For the sensory neuron, it transmit nerve impulse from receptor to the CNS. So usually the receptor are at the sense organ, like our skin, our eyes, our ears, okay? These are some of the sense organ with the receptor. They detect the stimulus receptor and then send nerve impulse through this sensory neuron, all right, and then to the CNS. So this is sensory neuron. And then for the interneuron is to do a relay, right? It transmit nerve impulse from sensory neuron to motor neuron. It's relay. They receive here the nerve impulse from sensory neuron pass through the cell body. Through this has become the axon of the interneuron, and then to pass the impulse to the motor neuron. For the motor neuron, it transmits nerve impulse from the CNS, from the central nervous system, and then they transmit the nerve impulse to the effector to give out the response. And so this is called motor neuron. So please note the directions of nerve impulse transmission in each types of neurons. If you look at the appearance once again, you can see that now this is the cell body. So when nerve impulse transmits towards the cell body, this is called a dendron. So you can see the sensory neuron usually have a long dendron, but their axon are shorter, all right, than the dendron. For the interneuron, you can find both the dendron and axons are short. They have both short dendron and short axon. For the motor neuron, it's different. They have very short dendron, but very long axon. The one that I've just showed to you in the section part A about the structures of a neuron actually is a motor neuron. This is a cell body, okay, a shorter dendron, but a long axon. So you can tell the difference by looking at their appearance. And please also see the connection. Look the connection. The dendrons usually connected to the receptor, so they receive the nerve impulse from the receptor. All right. Interneuron, they receive impulse from the dendron and axon of other neurons. For example, this is the axon from the sensory neuron. All right, and then they transmit nerve impulse, all right, to the dendron of the motor neuron. For the motor neuron, you find it's connected to the effector, all right. So the next is look the location of the cell body. Now these for the cell body, as I mentioned, interneuron, motor neuron at the CNS. The cell body of a sensory neuron is outside of the CNS, okay, outside the CNS. So for this part, just identify which one is motor neuron, sensory neuron, and interneuron. And usually we can find this in the multiple choice type questions, okay, to identify the structures and the differences, whether this is a axon or dendron, etc. And the locations of the cell body. Okay? So this is the section 16.1b, part B, types of neurons.